Hi everyone, we're just queuing up as folks are starting to join. We're getting everybody rolling here, and we'll be starting in just a minute. I believe we have Mr. Scoville with us as we queue everyone in, and we'll get rolling just a second here. Mr. Scoville, I assume you can see me okay?
I can.
Great.
Look beautiful
And
as ever.
Good. We're just waiting for our panelist, who I think is having maybe a little bit of a technical difficulty joining us, which is a unique one, but that's okay. Just give us a second, and we'll hopefully be bringing him on. And hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for your patience as we're doing this live and having a little bit of a technical glitch, bringing Erik on board with us, and he'll hopefully be able to log back in. We're working on it. Thanks for your patience, everybody. So there we go, Erik. How's it going, man?
Good, good. How are you?
We are fantastic. I'm digging the hat.
Thanks, man. Sorry,
Erik.
My computer was giving me a few issues.
No problem at all. Welcome. And Erik, I'm going to go ahead and start the handshake to take us live on social media. And in the interim, Erik, this is my partner, Stuart. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and how we met, and I'll take care of getting us going live while you do that.
All right. Hey, good to meet you, Stuart. I've been in franchising. That's my background. When I first met Jason, it was when I had the Liberty Tax Service regional development in Austin and Killeen. And so we got to work together when we had some, I had a franchisee that was leasing space in one of his locations there. And that's when we really got to know each other. And then since I left Austin, I sold the business. I moved back to South Dakota, which is where I grew up in the Black Hills. And then I've gone on to own 6 different brands and really, in 6-7 different states, and got involved on the franchisor side, and that's pretty much it.
Fantastic. And how long ago did you move to? You're up near the Black Hills, is that right?
Yeah, I'm in the Black Hills. I moved here, gosh, it was about 10 years ago. My daughter was just born. She was like 6 months old, and I just couldn't handle the heat in Austin. It was too hot for me. So we picked up, and we were going to go to Denver. And then at the last minute, we just said, let's just spend the summer at where I grew up. And that was 10 years ago.
Wow. And what have you been working on since your move? And gosh, I'm not even sure you had kids when we first met. You've really grown quite a bit these past
I did. No kids and just hustling in business, but moved here. And when you live in a small town like I do, there's like 10,000 people. It's a beautiful area, part of the country in the Black Hills, with a lot of mountain biking, fly fishing, just a great outdoor type environment. But there's not a great business environment. It's not like we have just so many places the population to handle many businesses, or at least to have businesses that scale. And so I used franchising as a way to own businesses in different states. So one of the larger ones that I exited about a little over a year ago was Solo Salon Studios. It was a salon suite concept, and I had, with some business partners, we had 12 locations in Orange County, California, and then we ended up selling that to a private equity company, and that was so that was my first probably larger exit since the tax business. And we ran that, really, all of us partners were very inactive in that business. We had one guy, district operational manager, who was running that business for us.
Very cool. Okay, so I want to back up, and we are streaming live now. So hi, social media world, please feel free to share this on your various pages as well. And Eric, I'm going to share it to your page in just a minute.
Perfect.
You mentioned the ability to run franchises remotely. Obviously, that's not how you started. The franchising world is something we all hear about and learn about, and I'd love to dive in deep into what's going on in today's crazy world. But first, kind of walk us through the history of getting started as a franchisee to what you have to do to be successful as a franchisee now.
So getting started what do you have to do to get started as a franchisee is the first question.
Yeah, versus, so you're running yours remotely,
Yep.
which is very applicable to a guy with your long track record.
Mm-hmm.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I suspect that's not how you can get started, is running things remote in the franchise world.
You can, but it's not the most common. And the typical ones that you can get started remotely, you just have to have the personality where you're not a micromanager. If you are a micromanager, you'll probably never really naturally be able to run businesses remotely and scale to multiple units, because unless you learn the skill of delegation and empowering people. So a lot of franchising is buying yourself a job. That's most franchising. They're buying themselves a job. And it's a really good place for people to enter into entrepreneurship if they're typically working for somebody. A great entry point into franchising is you're working for somebody, you're no longer working for somebody, we'll stick with that. You're no longer working for somebody, whether by choice or not. And you buy a franchise, and let's just call it a service-based business where we'll call it an executive-based model, meaning you can work in the business and then eventually work on the business. So you start that franchise, that business, by doing a lot of the things in the business, being the jack of all trades in that business, and then hiring out as the business grows. And then at some point you hire somebody to replace yourself in that business once that business is stable. That's probably the easiest way for somebody that does not have a job to start franchising, because they can pay themselves in that process. Another way is to people that want to keep their job. And this is a lot of it, Jason. A lot of people have a good job. They wish they had their own business, but they can't have a business and a job at the same time. But there are some franchises out there that actually allow that, where the business model itself is designed for a manager to run it, and the owner's managing the manager. And the franchisor should have really good training for that manager to be able to run that business for them. And I think that's one of the keys is the franchisor actually training the franchisee's manager. But that's another way to do it. So you can get into it by being a serial entrepreneur like myself, or you can get into it by buying yourself a job. That's a longer road. Or you can get into it through executive based ownership, where you start the business, work the business, and then have managers take over, and you start to scale the business or go on and start a different business. So
excellent. Thank you. And Corey Simonson, thanks for your question. I did see it, and we will ask, but I want to dig in a little bit more. So Eric, a lot of franchising, from what I've been told, is you get a good handbook combined with, hard work and a lot of mentoring. I imagine some of that handbook still applies for a lot of franchises. What franchises are succeeding today? What models are hurting? And what are franchise corporations doing now to manage this crazy COVID world? So
I've seen a lot of franchise.
Yeah,
I see a lot of franchisors, and the franchisor is the one that's selling the franchises and supporting the franchisees, and the franchisee is the local business owner. And I see a lot of franchisors in this environment of post-COVID or current COVID, whatever it is, the phases of COVID, they're really stepping up and helping franchisees right now. So across the board, I see that happening a lot, which is really solid. In terms of the industries right now, it's pretty typical. I mean, if you see the gym industry, the health industry, the fitness industry, and I was just on a call helping some franchisees through some of the challenges that they're having. A lot of them are in fitness, and the challenge is we're open. The fitness franchisees may be open, but they're limited in their class sizes. So they are having to reduce their payroll. They used to have staff helping sell memberships and things like that. They don't have that staff anymore because they can only have so many people come in at a given time. So they are surviving today by reducing hours and keeping current customers happy. So there's a lot of, so that's what's happening. And that's not that's not a sustainable business model, right? So they're surviving
Right.
to go on and to get to business as usual. What they're also doing is there are businesses that are going out of business. It might be a mom and pop, it might be your neighboring franchisee. And so if somebody's going out of business, there's opportunity to, and this is where a lot of people have a challenge, right? They don't want to be too opportunistic to take advantage of somebody's misfortune. So just to make sure that this is not taking advantage of someone's misfortune, it is, literally just, growing your business and you're not hurting anybody. You're just, someone leaves their location and they're done. You can go into somebody's location, and let's say they were in the same industry as you can now take over their lease, and they have customers that were used to going in. And now those customers might just be your customers because the sign on the front changed. And so I see business owners that are thinking like that as a way to grow and expand their businesses through COVID. So that's the rougher side of things, beauty and fitness right now. But that's how opportunistic entrepreneurs are growing in that time. Now, industries that are doing really well, like are need-based businesses, right? Where like the restoration business, it's a dirty, ugly business that when somebody's pipe bursts, something happens in somebody's home or business, somebody needs to go clean that up, fix it. If a pipe bursts, they have to put fans in to dry it out, and insurance typically pays for that. So that's going to happen regardless of COVID or not. People just can't allow that to happen in their business. So I've been talking to franchisees, franchisors, and that business is booming. That type of need-based service business is booming. And I've also spoken with somebody, he was just on my podcast, Franchise Secrets. We'll be releasing it in a month or two. But he's runs a call center for a lot of different franchisors and their franchisees. And so he has insight that most people don't have, because he's seen the calls increase and he's been booking more business. And so closing more deals for people that are in the service-based business. So and there's new industries being created right now. The different franchisors are pivoting. They're in the fitness industry. Some of the better franchisors are pivoting more to online classes. They're helping their franchisees by providing online classes. So that's what I mean by there are franchisors that are stepping up right now. And then in the service-based business, like a cleaning franchise, they've gone to specialty cleaning for COVID to help other businesses stay open. So it's those types of things. And then, something that's really, I'm going really strong here, Jason. So I need to pause a little bit more if you have some questions.
Bring
or I can
it.
Keep going.
Bring it. Keep going. Bring it.
So I was on a private meeting with Marcus Lemonis with The Prophet, and he owns Camping World. And then I had a friend of mine that owns a large RV type business where he sells a bunch of RVs. And early in COVID, I thought, oh my gosh, those places are going to get hammered, because I thought the economy was going to be in rough shape because businesses weren't open and people were getting laid off. Well, they can't. And he thought the same thing. My friend did. And talking to him and Marcus, like business is booming for those guys. He said he sold out on all of his RVs. My friend did. And Marcus gave us an indication on how well their business is doing at Camping World. And it's amazing. So there are businesses out there that you may not think that would be doing very well through a COVID crisis like this, but they're providing things for people to get out and in the home. I mean, think about this. I have friends that are installing basketball courts outside right now. the pool business is increasing right now. There's a lot of things that are actually doing well right now that you normally wouldn't think about because people want it. People are doing home renovations right now because they're spending more time in their home. So all kinds of stuff that you normally wouldn't think about, business is doing really well.
Okay, that's some great insight, Eric. Thank you. So we have service-based business, home renovation, outdoor fitness. I want to back up for a second and talk a moment about opportunity. The fitness centers traditionally, they're hurting. The ones that have really been hard shut down. Where do you see, how do you turn that lemonade into lemons? Excuse me, lemons into lemonade and make some great opportunity out of it?
For the fitness places that are shut down?
Wherever you see the opportunities, how does someone, either as a small business person or they want to become a small business person, they want to expand, any of those things, how do they find the opportunity? Maybe it's from a land. Well, let's talk about that, and then I'll have a few more questions.
So one of the I did, so I have a yoga business in Denver. I did a couple things. I had my business partner start calling neighboring yoga studios. How are things going? Just reach out to them, a soft reach out on LinkedIn. How are things going? We're kind of in this together, blah, blah, blah. Got pinged back. Things are going really bad. I don't know what to do. I'm probably going to shut down. And they had 3 locations near us. But I want to take care of my customers. And so now there's opportunity for us to maybe structure a deal where we're not going to take over leases, but we can pay for customers that actually come in, or we can help them out in the short term. And we don't have to, in my mind, I don't want to pay cash for that, but I could, if I get their list of customers and she really is going to go under and the landlords are going, and there's no hope for her, then if I get her list and she emails her list of customers and they now become my customers, I'm happy to pay her for that. And I'm happy to pay her a good amount for that. Because we all know the customer is worth a certain amount of money. So that's one way that I'm looking at it, not necessarily buying her business, but buying parts of her customer list that actually become our customers. So that's one thing. There's the other thing that I did at the exact same time, I went to our leasing guy in Denver and I said, Zach, can you, because he has the pulse of all the landlords. I'm not going to call a bunch of different landlords. I was like, Zach, can you find out where the opportunities are, where the landlords might have a current yoga studio or something that would work for a yoga studio where we can basically come in, and that location wasn't available to us before and now might become available to us. And that exact same thing has happened. So I've been able to get leads on possible opportunities by just a cold reach out on LinkedIn or however he did it, my business partner, and then just reaching out to my leasing guy, because they've got, good ones have a pulse on the industry. They know the landlords. They're always talking, and it's an email, and then they get all kinds of feedback. So I try to go with the people that have the influence and are close to the ground on all of that.
Wonderful. I'd love to talk to you about the landlord-tenant relationship, as you probably were expecting that to come up for me, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah, we go back a long ways. Okay, so from both, let's talk about from
Hey,
the
I'm a little bit
tenant side
smarter now
first.
too, so I could probably be a little bit better negotiator than I was back then.
So am I. Watch it.
I'm still at the disadvantage. I'm still at a disadvantage.
Not a chance, man. You never have been. You've always been savvy. I think that's one of the things that makes you so successful is you're able to see things from so many hats, and you hustle and you work hard. And by the way, folks, Erik now provides a lot of consulting services to companies that are both on the franchisee or franchisor side, or businesses considering franchising. And I hope we have time to get into that. Let's first talk about, from a tenant's perspective, a franchisee calls you and says, Erik, I need help. I'm in the space. I can't pay the rent. It's a good location. What do I do? So what kind of negotiations are you seeing going on, or are you helping with from the tenant side of things?
As in terms of going in as a new one, or somebody that's
existing that are struggling with their current business?
So what advice do I give them as a tenant to
in
work
their conversations with the landlord?
work with the landlord? I, like you were saying before, how I'm good at looking at things from both sides, and I am on both sides as a commercial landlord, and then as a guy that needs to lease from landlords. And so I'm a huge fan of always looking at things from both sides, because you're in a better negotiating position, and it's just the right thing to do. So it depends. So in my mind, I tell them, you need to find out what they've done in other situations. So I try to get other information. If it's a national landlord, I know it's kind of, they're probably taking a harder stance. If it's an individual landlord that owns a handful of them, or their mom and pop, and they don't own a bunch of them, they may have bank loans on that, where they have to maintain certain ratios, and they may not have those bank loans there. And the bank may be working with them to help them with that, and their bank may not be working to help them with that. So you really need to understand what their position is, so you know what kind of leverage they actually have, and then what their other options are. And that's one of the things that I've so that's, first of all, how I kind of coach them. And then I was just on the phone. I was listening to a call the other day where one of the franchisees was saying, why aren't these landlords giving full abatement? I'm mad that these landlords aren't giving full abatement. I'm going to go out of business. And that's looking at things from one side. And as a business owner, that's my stance. I need I'm not open. I'm at 50% capacity. Do we start just to give you half of the rent since I'm at 50% capacity or something? Well, the landlord's not really looking at it from that standpoint. And I don't look at it as a landlord from that standpoint, because I've got bills, I've got things that I need to pay regardless. And that's where the government came in to help some of that out as well. So, I try to set expectations for franchisees that want to just full on abatement, to look at it from all sides. And once they start doing that, they start to get a little bit more realistic, and just realizing, and also it's a fluid situation. We just really don't know what's going to happen, and you have to be okay with that. And you have to, and that's where some of us business owners, in the good times before COVID, if we just spent all the money that we had and we're not in a good position, then we almost did that to ourselves. Or if we were, and not, that's not knocking on anybody, but it is a reminder why we store cash and why we are in a good position to weather different storms. Because look at what Warren Buffett did. So that's that a lot of us business owners that want to continue to grow business, we see the potential of profit in the future, versus thinking, am I expanding too fast if something happens that I'm not expecting to happen? And I know some franchisees out there were expanding too fast, and they got caught. If COVID never happened, Jason, they would be looked at as incredible, smart franchisees for expanding so fast, and they'd be making millions of dollars in 2 years. But this happened. Now they're in a different situation.
Right. It's interesting. On most of the podcasts, the "don't run out of cash" comment keeps coming up. It's a reoccurring theme for obvious reasons. What from the franchisor side have you seen with flexibility or creative ideas to help their franchisees? Have there been some specific lessons learned that you go, wow, that was a great idea, that's really going to help that business?
I think there is, heard of one franchisor that had all the landlord's contact information, and because the franchisees were required to upload all that information and details of the lease. So the franchisees could reach out to that landlord and ask for some help. But now this one franchise, the franchisor was able to do that with or on behalf of the franchisees, to say, nationally, this is what we're asking for. And so I think that was nice when the franchisor is able to do some of that with you as a franchisee. I think they put out really good communication on how to work with landlords, and asking for giving different types of solutions, whether it's abatement, whether it's deferral, and what deferral kind of looks like. And so that was, and this, now it's like, yeah, that's real obvious. That's real, everyone kind of knows that now. But in the middle of it, when that first started happening, nobody knew what to do. They weren't sure as a business owner, they weren't sure of what to do. So good franchisors were putting out information that was well thought out, researched, and information, so the franchisees could just execute on that versus trying to have to figure it out. So I think at its core, that's what franchising is. It's shortcutting your path to success, learning from other people's failures, and the franchisor can do things at scale versus each individual. Think if there's 200 franchisees trying to figure out how to negotiate rent versus the franchisor putting it out. This is the playbook. Another good one, friend of mine, Bedros Keuilian, he owns Fit Body Boot Camp. Great guy. He runs a mastermind with me and a lot on his own, but he put together an incredible like pre-opening or opening post-COVID plan for his franchisees, the best one that I've seen out there. And that's what he did. And I think that, just again, doing things at scale that help franchisees so they don't have to figure out and do it on their own. In the fitness world, some of them pivoted to online classes. Some of them had planned it before, like at Exponential Fitness, like Yoga 6 and Cycle Bar and Pure Bar. I saw a comment on here in Pure Bar. They rolled out online classes on a very robust platform that was really months down as a project for probably fourth quarter of this year. And they expedited that to come out much earlier. So I see a lot of them doing that. And then just different cleaning products and just making it a lot easier for their franchisees to do business.
Are there some new franchises you think in the pipe right now based on the COVID experience? We had Airbnb and Uber come out of the 2008 recession of how do I monetize my car in my bedroom? What do you think? You got to smile, so I know you know something. Share with us, where do you think some of the new opportunities are coming that we should be aware of?
Yeah, I think there are. I know it's hard because you don't know if it's short-lived, right? You don't know if this is something where like COVID cleaning, and that's not a name. That's just, talking about cleaning for COVID.
It should be. You better trademark that quick.
I just trademarked it. But there are things that are really relevant today. And how relevant is that going to be 3 years from now? And it might be very relevant. So that is one thing that I see out there. A lot of some of these cleaning franchises have pivoted to that. Some have even started because of that. But I'm just not sure how big that's going to be. There are other industries that are more health focused. I don't think like masks and all of that stuff, that's just all short term. People are getting into that game, and it's all short term stuff, which is fine. But think more health. I think this is shifting the way, it's just speeding up the way that we were really going to be going in the future anyway. Think about Peloton and the mirror and all of that stuff. That was all happening before COVID. And now people were forced to not do what they used to do, which is go to class, and they gravitated towards that. There's going to be a segment that cannot wait to get back to their group classes because it's people, it's interaction and all of that. But I do think like there's going to be a lot more online classes, and franchisors need to be focused on technology now more than ever. If a franchisor is still living old school, not investing into technology, then they're probably going to be left behind. And that's for everything. So that's one of the things that I see is coming up. And going back to health, people are concerned with getting COVID and also preventing getting COVID and a lot of other things. And so we know the more healthy that you are, it's probably going to be, it's not going to hurt you. The healthier you are, it's not going to hurt you. And there are franchises out there that are more health focused, that are not necessarily the long-term diet type thing, but just give you good, like vitamin bar, or IV bars and things like that, where there's a mobile component to it. And then there is a brick and mortar component to it. And I think in general, a lot of people are wanting to get away from the heavy brick and mortar. Bad for some of our stuff, Jason, in retail, but I think it's just kind of a different, smaller spaces, less money. Mobile component to it is just safer for some of the entrepreneurs, the franchisees out there. And I see other franchisors that have quickly pivoted to curbside pickup or home or delivery, things like that, where again, had some technology, whether it's an app or something like that, that they made it really easy for their customers to do. So a lot of pivoting, a lot of franchisors are doing the right thing for their franchisees right now.
That's fantastic. From the landlord side, since brick and mortar retail, I agree with you. That's where who knows what the future looks like. What should a landlord be doing right now to stand out in the crowd and to make sure they're keeping their tenants and getting new tenants? What can a landlord do better?
One of the things, just talking to their tenants, just seeing how they're doing, and just knowing your tenants, and this is, I guess I'm coming from the perspective of a smaller landlord, because I'm not a REIT, so I don't know how it works from that standpoint, but I know for us, we are wanting to set the right expectations, that you're not going to live on deferrals. You're open. You're going to be paying rent. And if you can't afford it, let's start talking about that real conversation sooner than later, and how we can help you with whatever that looks like, whether it's more advertising or giving advice or pointing you in the right direction on something. But like, as a landlord, how can I help my tenants? How can I drive business to them? How can I give them some advice? Or how can I help, bring in a speaker, or bring in somebody that's going to introduce them to somebody that's doing well in a different center or something like that? How can I help my tenants? Because some of them are business savvy and some of them are not business savvy. So how can I help them, number one? And I just think setting the right expectations. And some of them want one-offs. They want us to do something for them because of their lack of hustle, their lack of, maybe they're just too afraid, where there might be the same business open up down the street, but someone in my location, in my retail center, doesn't want to open up because they're afraid of this or they're afraid of that. So you have to point out, you're doing this to yourself and you could be open. So I just think and it's not fair for me as a landlord, not fair to everybody else, if I'm not charging you rent just because you don't want to be open or you don't have the hustle. So it's like getting them to get in the right mindset to get open and do what it takes. And as a franchise, like, we get that, Jason. We get that from our franchisor. We see other franchisees that are opening and how they're doing. But mom and pop businesses out there, they don't have that. And we know there's certain people that they never want to wear masks. And there's certain people that are going to drive around town in their mask. And there's just different types of people. So our tenants are the same way, but it's just relationship. And then just setting the right expectations so there's no surprises. And that's what we've been trying to do. And we were actually proactive with our tenants. When this all happened, we went to them and we said, you're probably going to get shut down at some point, and this is what we're going to do for you. So we took that proactive stance, and our bank worked with us. So we in turn worked with them. And so far it's worked out well doing that.
Realistic for the tenant to give their monthly P&L, their profit and loss statement, in exchange for some rent abatement, or not realistic? I
don't know. I guess it just depends. Like, as a tenant, right. Whenever there's a give on something, there's always an ask, or there could be an ask, right? And so I would be fine with that. And what brings another question, like, what happens if you just go to a gross rent, something like that, where it's off of the top line that's coming in, and that way it's real. And I've heard other people talk about that, instead of just paying, let's just call it $10,000 a month. If when I used to be having $50,000 a month in revenue, now I'm down to 20,000. Can we work out something that is like that? And so I don't know, as a landlord, what I would think about that, but I know there are tenants that are thinking along that line.
We have a question. Thank you, Anita. Great question. Are franchisors working with franchisees with some of the fee structure during this time? And I kind of agree. I had a conversation very early on with a very successful business person whose view was, everybody has to give. Everyone has to contribute for us to all make it through this. Are franchisors working with franchisees? When franchisees are asking landlords for help and franchisees are struggling, Is there anything that they're doing?
It's interesting. I know some. I can play both sides of this. I can be the devil's advocate on both sides. Franchisors that
Please do it.
I'll do it. I'll talk out of both sides here. So franchisors that gave by saying we're not going to charge you royalties, and a lot of royalties are charged by revenue coming in, right? And so if we still have revenue coming in as a franchisee because people are still paying us, even though it wasn't what it was before, that franchisor is still um, working. They're still doing everything on their end, and I'm paying my royalties, and I'm okay with that because they're living up to their end of the bargain, which is to whatever that end of the bargain is, provide a system of doing business and support, etc. And if they have all of their staff working, they didn't furlough anyone, they didn't lay anybody off, and so their position in this whole thing is, I'm not laying anybody off. We're working. We are not slowing down ourselves, and we're going to support you as franchisees. In turn, we want you guys to keep paying royalties. We're not going to turn off your royalties, and we know that your royalties are going to be about 20% of what they used to be. So we at the franchisor level are losing more than you're losing in some ways. So that's one stance on that. The other one is the franchisor that goes into hunker down mode. We're going to furlough some of our employees. They're going to get unemployment. They're going to do this, and we're going to bring them back at a certain time. And we're also going to reduce or turn off your royalties. And I've seen that happen on both sides. And while I wouldn't like to pay royalties, if I still have money coming in, I'm okay doing that. And I kind of like a franchisor that has the mindset of, we are not letting this change what we do for you as a franchisee. As a matter of fact, we're going to do even more for you during this time than we've ever done before. So there's the two different sides to that. And I don't know that one's right or wrong. That was a good question.
Interesting. Well, it was a good way to answer both sides. Well done. I was watching a tennis match occur between one person.
Yeah, I was getting confused. But I think at the end of the day, I would rather have that franchisor. I'd rather pay royalties and have them be in the game, just from a mindset standpoint and what they're doing for me. And I think it makes me want to open up faster. It makes me want to do more for my own customers. So, but that's me.
We have another great question from a guy who's been one of our advisors for one of my companies, Laundry Love. He says, what's the difference between a regular franchise and a laundry franchise? I would broaden that question to say, we've talked a little bit about markets that seem to be able to at least not get as hurt as bad from a COVID shutdown as others. So whether it's specific to laundry or others, what makes some of these segments stand out, you think, in the crowd from the franchise world?
From the franchise, why would a franchisor want to be in a certain industry?
What would make one industry stand out and survive during the next who knows what version of a shutdown?
Gosh.
That's, if you were to tell your parents, Mom, Dad, take your life savings, go park it here. This kind of industry, I think, may be better for you with your life savings than something else.
I don't have that crystal ball. And when I try to look at it, I'm looking at COVID, which we're living in now. And most of us thought there's going to be rounds of openings and closings and phases of that. And we're in phase 2 right now, right at this moment. And when you listen to the replay, Arizona basically backtracked last night. And there's probably going to be some more states that follow that. And then everything will probably open up again. Then it'll close down again. And then, at some point, this will all be over. What's not going to be over is the economic impact of it. And what does that really look like? And is it, and that's where I struggle of what's actually going to be happening, in 2 years or 3 years from now, because we're doing stuff to the economy that's never really been done before, at least to my knowledge, with all of this money that's being pumped in. So I think, and I don't, listening to Ray Dalio's book, Principles, and just how he made some mistakes early on, and what he thought wasn't happening really happened, and vice versa. And so it just made me realize that as much as I want to look at the future, like, we're in uncharted territory right now? And I really don't know. So that's probably the thing that is guiding me the most right now is there's too many unknowns. So when there's unknowns, I'm going to gravitate towards the things that are more sure than anything else. And I say that with, it's still unsure, some type of certainty. In the tax business, Jason, we used to say death and taxes. That's certainties in life. Well, that tax model that we were in the early days at Liberty Tax changed. And that's when I got out, because the business model was changing. So like right now, where I'm putting my money is in a roofing franchise, starting up a roofing franchise. And it will be, we'll probably be offering that for sale in the fall. And I like that business because if we had a hailstorm come through here about a couple weeks ago, and it destroyed so many roofs. And you can't sell a house with a destroyed roof, unless it's a cash buyer. And so that's a need. Something happened, something needs to happen, and it's not even coming out of the customer's pocket because the insurance company is paying for it. So I tend to look at businesses like that are those bomb-proof businesses. Those things are going to be in business tomorrow, regardless of the economy and regardless of COVID. And so those are the types of businesses that I look at that are pretty interesting to me. The other things that are interesting to me too, and this is kind of outside of franchising, more investing, are online businesses. What can you do to scale? How can, if you get into a business, have a chance to invest into some software or some online businesses. And I'm part of a group that we're buying out struggling companies and that are online that we all know are going bankrupt because we see them in the news, and they're very well-known brands. And I'm investing into them with a group because I know now this is the future. This is going from brick and mortar brand to online. And an example of that is Dress Barn. I invested into Dress Barn, old company, some pretty good brand recognition. All the brick and mortars are gone, 100% online now. And I think they're about ready to double projections on that brand. And I'm one of the investors in that. So I start to look at things like that are interesting, that COVID and the economy is just kind of speeding everything up.
Do you think this is the beginning of a very large tidal wave of the closure of a significant amount of retail and rebranding to being online only? Is this the start of that?
Yeah, I think so. We are seeing it right now, and we're seeing the beginnings of it right now. I think it's just speeding up the inevitable. Even in the fitness business, Peloton has been out for a while. I love Peloton. I have it. I use it. I've had that for years. And yet I own brick and mortar fitness facilities, and now there's the mirror, and there's all other kinds of things. And there's just more coming out all the time. And actually one of the software companies I'm about ready to invest in does that across different fitness modalities. So I do think that's the future. It is going to hurt some of us landlords out there, some of the businesses, but it's the ones that can react the fastest by getting in a new tenant, or an owner in a competing business that can go in and now expand rapidly through that, or the landlord that can find the other business to get in there and take advantage of that. That's how we're going to win. And that's how I want to expand. So another way to look at this is, as a franchise owner in the past, my expansion strategy has been to find a new location, pay rent, build out, open up, and then rinse and repeat. Now it's finding unique opportunities and expanding by buying out existing businesses that are in the same industry as me, or just finding great retail deals that weren't in existence before.
Okay, so we had what we'll generally call COVID round one, which was a real, I think that a proper term would be a real ass whooper. And then things, everybody got very anxious, and we all got sick and tired of the new normal, and things started reopening. And it appears, as you're saying about Arizona, I know it's the same in Texas, we're headed towards COVID round 2. You know, we've got this roller coaster. A buddy calls you, says, Erik, I don't even feel like getting out of bed anymore. What's some wisdom you have for the general world of this is how you get up and get at it?
No, I have not had, I've heard of some depression out there. I have not experienced any of that personally that I've seen. I've just heard that, and I can see it. This, just to set the stage, I live, on 80 acres. We have like a little hobby ranch out here, and my nearest neighbor is, not super close. So we are naturally socially distanced. We are absolutely loving this time as a family. Like, this is, from that standpoint, it's incredible. I'm also give a shout out to Front Row Dads. John Vroman is the founder of that. And any dads out there, go check out Front Row Dads, the Facebook group. It's free, and it's a place where like, people are struggling out there that didn't have good marriages, didn't have good relationship with their kids. And we're in a time where that can just get worse, and it's getting worse in some cases. Right. And if you get around the right people to help coach you in the right way, to give you different perspective, to change your mindset on something, to look at your kids from a different angle, to look at your wife from a different angle, to see if you might be the problem versus everybody else being the problem. And if you start to get to that point, you have to go find the resources out there like that. And I would start with Front Row Dads. If you're a husband or a father, and women, I know there's other things out there for you as well, but get a part of a group that is real, and they care, and there's real talk going on versus just a bunch of fluff, and real relationship. And then you will see, and even, I'm a part of a group every Monday morning. There's about 20 of us entrepreneurs that get on a 30-minute phone call, and we just started it ourselves. And a lot of these guys are well-known people that names in the world that people would know. And we give our highs and the lows, talk about it, hang up, and share it. We share it with each other. And people talk about real stuff on those calls. So find some people that are in your life that are real. They're good listeners, and yet they're just not going to tickle your ears. They're going to tell you, like, hey man, you need to change your mindset on this. You need to get right over here, or here's a resource, or here's a book. And just start trying to find information that's going to change you from the inside. Just get on Facebook and ask for some books on leadership, on family. There's a family board book called the Family Board Meeting. And it'll give you some ideas on what to do with your kids and with your spouse. Take your spouse on a date. Do things that you normally don't do. Take advantage of this time, because before we know it, we're going to be out of this, and we're either going to look back on this time and see that we wasted our opportunity to spend with our family, to spend with our friends, spend with the people that we want to know better in a deeper way. Learn something about your kid. I'm speaking to myself here, Jason. This isn't me talking to other people, telling them what to do. I'm speaking to myself. Know something about your kids, your values, the values that you have as a family, and take time to do that kind of thing versus looking back and saying, I had that time, wasn't working as much, and I squandered it. And that's the biggest loss that I could look back on, is that I squandered the time because I was worried about this, or I was worried about that, or I was trying to do more in business because it was failing over here, it wasn't as strong over there. It's like, there's time right now, and we're forced to be with the people that we love. In some cases out there, people that you used to love, and take advantage of that time.
Wow. Thank you. That was a fantastic answer. You're used to working remote and being socially distanced. What does a typical morning look like for Erik, and what gets him out of bed?
I've tried to get out of bed and to not get on the computer right away. I'm not very good at that because it's quiet, and I'd love to have I'm trying to get better at this, but I'd love to have about 30 minutes, an hour on my computer, emails, get that to inbox 0 with a cup of coffee. Nobody's around. And then like my mind's clear for some reason. I would love to be at the place where I'm the guy that doesn't open up my computer or check anything until 10 o'clock. But that's typically what I do. I get my computer, get that out, read, go for a walk with my dogs. And then my wife's around. We'll spend some time talking before the kids get up. Typically I'm on a bike, probably 3 to 5 times a week. I'm on a mountain bike with a friend at 7 a.m., 7 to 9, 7 to 10. My first phone call, the first time they can book a call with me in the mornings is at 10 o'clock. And the last time is at 1. So I have a window from 10 to 1 where people can book a time to work with me, and Fridays are always off. So my work day morning doesn't start until 10 a.m. Typically, Jason, Mondays are blocked for me as well as a way to start the week, so I can do the things that need to get done without having anything on my calendar. It doesn't always happen, but that's what I try to do.
Love it. How much do you feel that blocking out that time for you and your family has propelled you forward? You know, it's kind of eating the healthy nutrition first versus the junk food. Is it helped your life overall? I think a lot of people need to hear the impact of blocking your days like that.
Oh, it's been really, really hard to do, because there's always demand on all of our schedules, and it always seems important. But I look back and I've gotten to the point where I can block out Fridays, block out Mondays, and have that time. And it's changed. It's been so good. It's been the best thing that I've done. And yet it was really hard to do because I felt bad. I'm like, are people going to think I don't work until 10? And like my friend Bedros Keuilian, he gets his workout in the morning, and like he doesn't come into the office until later in the day. But it wasn't because he was lazy. He's up earlier than I am, like pounding out emails, and then goes to the gym. But it's just been the best thing, because I don't wake up in a hurry. And then people start to expect that from you. Like I'll have people say, "Hey, Erik, can we talk Friday?" Oh, I know you don't work Fridays, because I talk about it on things like this, on videos like this, on my podcast. So people know that I don't typically work on Fridays. And so just getting that, and that doesn't mean I'm lazy, doesn't mean any of that. And some of my best ideas, at least I think they're the best, come when I'm out exercising, I'm in nature, I'm talking to my wife, I'm, just out in the yard, whatever I'm doing before that chaos of the day starts. Like there's so many good things that come to me. And so it's like the best thing. If you can do that, even the other day, I was looking at a buddy of mine said, "Hey, Erik, do you want to go to Alaska later in July?" I'm like, "Yeah, let me look at that." And I had a Yellowstone trip planned. We're gone for a week. And then it was right after that. And I said, I'm like booked for 3 weeks. And that would make it 3 weeks in July that I'm booked. So I can't go. And I'm like, that's a horrible thing for me to even think. That's a way for me to think that my time is where I earn my money. The time invested into the business is where I earn their money. As soon as I said that, I had a thought that came through my mind is the thing that I hate doing in one of my businesses, the thing that I hate doing that makes me a lot of money. I called up my main man, Michael, who does a lot of stuff for me. And I said, "Michael, what do you think about this, where you can get involved in this thing that you've never been involved with before, but now you can take this off of my plate and you can make more money if we can solve this one problem together." And he's like, "Erik, I love that idea. Thank you so much." So that's a win-win. It takes stuff off of my plate, and yet I can empower somebody else that's on my team who I think is just absolutely fantastic, and he can make more money and I have more time. And it's a thing that I don't enjoy doing, so I can do more of what I absolutely love.
Love it. You hear this on a lot of podcasts, and I just love the question. Is there any book that you gift more than any others? And are there any books that have had a large, meaningful impact on you?
I'm just going real old school here, with Robert Kiyosaki on Rich Dad, Poor Dad. and then I'll come with a follow-up to that, because I just had him on my podcast, as you know, and I think it's releasing next week. And to be able to get him on my podcast, like, I have no business getting a guy like Robert Kiyosaki on my podcast. I'm not at that level, but I was able to get him on my podcast. And as I was realizing that, I realized at my first franchise that we as a franchisor gave out thousands of those books to everybody that was just getting involved. And I started to tell some of my friends, hey, I'm having, Robert Kiyosaki on my podcast. And they were just like, no way, he changed my life. And I've talked about a lot of different people and different books and authors at different times, but the response I got by telling people that are just my friends that he's going to be on my podcast, I cannot tell you how many lives have been changed because he wrote that book. And because he was also willing to learn from his rich dad versus his poor dad. And then moving forward, on that call with him was just, it was incredible for me as to reflect back and actually be able to talk to him like that. But he's like, Erik, that was an accounting book. And I hated accounting. I still hate accounting, but he's like, that Rich Dad Poor Dad was an accounting book. And I used it to teach people numbers and these different things. And so it just made me realize, like, I look back and I didn't even give that book enough credit for what it really was and how smart Robert really was to do that. And he's gone on to write a bunch of different books, but that one book, as I look back, completely changed the way it set me on this path of entrepreneurship, because I never had the words to describe what I wanted to do or who I was. And he basically did that for me. And another book that was just early on like that was The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. Mm-hmm. And just really got me in that mindset of working on your business, not in your business. And then so many different books, man. I like to, listen to a lot of books. And right now it's Ray Dalio at, 1.8 speed on Audible on his book Principles. So yeah, so many good books out there.
Ray Dalio's book was a Bible. That was a big read. So we're gonna wrap up here in a minute. It's already been an hour. It goes by very fast. A couple of things. Ray Dalio covers an awful lot about points of pain and documenting points of pain so you can learn. What are some points of pain you've learned recently out of all this?
Listen to that book and having him talk about that and having recent experience in some of that is, so that's a fresh question for me. To back up even more, one of the things that I've done is I've documented points of wins and points of pain and just important things in my life. I just do it on Evernote. Something happens that's kind of a big thing, or I think it's a big thing. I'll put the date, the thing, the event, the whatever it is, with a little note on it, so I can always just go back and look at my own timeline. So that's something that I typically do is look at wins and losses or mountaintop experiences, and then just the deep valleys. And so recently, I've had my one business failure. I remember being on a podcast with John Lee Dumas about 2 years ago, and he's like, Erik, he asked the same questions to everybody. And he's like, what's your biggest failure? And I remember looking back, I'm like, I lost $20,000 on a house one time. And I'm like, that's not a real big failure, but I think that was my answer, because I didn't really have a big failure. Now, losing several hundreds of thousands of dollars, I have a big failure. And it's big to me. And it's interesting. I don't see it. It's not hurting me. I know it's not hurting me financially. It doesn't feel good, but it doesn't hurt me financially. And the worst thing that I can do from that is not learn from that. And at 2:00 today with my business partners, we have a 2-hour call as a looking back and what did we learn from that. So that's actually set today at 2:00 to learn from that whole experience. But I tell you what, it's I had a choice. It was a franchise that I failed at. And I have a choice to tell everyone that I actually had a failure in franchising, or just to brush it under the rug. And I made that. It was never even a question, that it was always going to be talked about openly as a failure, because not everything I touch is turning to gold. And people started to think that. People that worked with me wanted me to help them find good franchises to buy. I'm not always right. I'm not perfect. I can't magically pick them. And so I learned so much in that for me to help other people find good brands to buy. And again, I don't know everything about franchising. I think just that authentic message is really important.
What was the biggest thing you learned from that failure?
Deeper due diligence, asking questions that are beyond the basic question. Um, and then that's probably I have a number of different things going through my mind right now, but the question behind the question behind the question behind the question. There's a way to, an example is if you see a business that's just incredible, I'll say it this way. In one of my beauty businesses, we thought buying the county of LA County, Beverly Hills, all of that is just going to crush it in the beauty industry because we're going to make so much money because everybody wants to be a Kardashian. Everyone spends money on beauty in California. What we didn't realize is the franchisees in Texas were doing way better in their profitability because rent was less, labor was less, and yet there was a lot of disposable income. And so, take that and look at that across any different industry and whatever it is. Why is it successful here? Why is it not successful there? Is it because is it successful because of the generic marketing strategy, the franchisor, or was there a unicorn involved somewhere? Those types of things just go much deeper. Another franchise we were looking at is based in Utah. And we asked a friend, so ask friends, just not business questions, but consumer questions. Why do you think that this particular business does well here? And they said it's because of the demographic. You need to make sure that this demographic is the same as this demographic over here. Are the way that they consume whatever it is the same in this part of the country? And if it is, then you've answered that question. And that's not there's not something that's unique or a unicorn about that it's very consistent across the board. Because in any brand that you buy, you want the strength of that business or the profitability to be universal because the brand has really good systems, not because it has one-off success that's really hard to find on the front end.
Great. Got one more question. I know your time's precious, and I'm really, really grateful. And then after this question, I'd love to know, how can people reach you? Where do they find you on social media? And folks, just so you know, one of the businesses I'm involved in, we've considered franchising. And if we do that, the person we're going to go through is, you're looking at them right here. This is a wealth of information and knowledge that is hands down some of the best you can get. If your franchise is in trouble, if you're looking at buying a franchise, if you're looking at creating a franchise, here's your expert. Or if you need to change things up and renegotiate some terms, here's a great guy. Erik, we had a wonderful question from Steve Barker. This is something I've thought of from time to time. Let's say you go build a shopping center or you buy a shopping center and say, I'm just going to fill it with all my own franchises. What do you think?
Bad idea.
Okay. Why?
Because I'll say that's very, very black and white, but it might be a bad idea.
No, I love it.
because of this. And I think most of you will probably agree. When a franchisor gets a call that says, hey, I'm a landlord, and this is me sitting at the franchisor office getting calls from landlords saying, hey, we would love to put, this pizza chain in here or this fitness concept in here or whatever. And they get that call. And I'm thinking, so now I'm the franchisor thinking, Jason, that's an incredible center. That's the center that we would want to be in, but we don't have a franchisee in that area right now. And I don't know if I'm going to get that franchisee in 1 month or 2 years. And so I can't really do anything about it. So that is an overall strategy to fill it is just not that strong. Now, what I would do is if I would go to other franchise, if there's a franchisee like a Jimmy John's, if you have something that is not built yet, something like that, call that franchisor because they have a real estate person that's really working that. So it's not necessarily the franchisor, but it's the franchise real estate person. Say, hey, this is on its way. You have a franchisee that this is an area that they want to get into, and this is the next logical growth for them. Then that might make sense. So I think I would rather talk to the real estate people for these different franchisors versus the franchisor themselves. So that's probably the biggest takeaway. Get with the real estate department, the local leasing department. Otherwise, you're just going to they're going to tell you what you want to hear, and you'll never hear from them again. So find out who deals with their local leasing. And I know, like in Denver, I know the guy in Denver that deals with all the exponential fitness brands. That's his role. So that's what I would do.
And tell us a little bit about your podcast and how can people reach you, man?
All right. Franchise Secrets. Franchise Secrets is my main website. Look me up on Facebook, LinkedIn, Erik Vanhorn, Vanhorn. Love to be friends with you. If you're a franchisee, I've got a free Facebook group that anybody can join. If you're a franchisee, I also have a paid mastermind group for franchisees. But Franchise Secrets is probably the best way to reach out to me. I help people buy franchises, find franchises to buy. I help people that want to go and I'm getting ready to do some cool mentoring stuff with people that are experts in their area of franchising to help people franchise their business, kind of mentors to them. Like think about having one of the top attorneys, one of the top PR guys, one of the people that can help companies that can help you build an operating agreement. Right now, Jason, it's very difficult as a successful mom and pop business that wants to franchise it, find out who's legit in franchising and who's just going to take your money and deliver an inferior product. So I'm going to be creating a group, kind of like a mastermind full of mentors and other franchisors who are ahead of everybody so you can ask them questions. But Franchise Secrets is the best place. I got a podcast there. I've had some really, really incredible guests on, and some that are well-known, and some incredible guests that are just normal Joes that have incredible stories and we can learn from. So that's it.
Great. All right, man. So are you coming to ride in Colorado or am I coming up there?
Oh, come up here. We've got some, well, let's do both. Both.
Okay. Well, my partner Stuart's on the phone, and between the three of us, well, I would normally talk smack right now because we'll edit it down, but we do have a live audience. And so I look forward to your time on the trail.
Please go ahead, Jason. Keep talking.
Stuart used to ride for Trek. So we can kick his butt. I've got no doubt. He's scared to be on a mountain bike, and we'll just get him out on the trail a bit. Thank you for your time, everyone. As we go to produce this, and it will be moved over to a YouTube channel and a new podcast will be starting. There'll be a lot of show notes and links. Erik, we're so very, very grateful to have you here. Any closing notes or thoughts for the folks before we sign off?
Guys, just find whatever you're doing, find experts in whatever it is. The biggest thing that I think has helped me become more successful is being around really successful people, more successful than me. I love to be one of the dumbest guys in the room. And then I eventually become one of the smartest guys in that room. Then I know I need to get into a different room. And I absolutely live that statement. So.
And Erik Vanhorn, thank you so much. Again, we'll have some show notes up where you can find them. One more time, Erik, your podcast name is for the audience?
Franchise Secrets.
Franchise Secrets, folks. Write it down. Go subscribe. Thanks, Erik. I'll be in touch very soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Take care.